Good morning, no fly given. Boy, do I got one for you today. So, I have a theory for you, an actual theory. That's all it is. And I want to say this outright. I am no lawyer, I'm no attorney. And a little bit about me, I've spent most of my life in trucking, construction, and the military. Okay? Blue collar worker, but I understand the law to the point where I feel comfortable enough to post this video. A lot of these attorneys have been fighting Flock on a direct front. Mass surveillance, we're going to fight them on that situation. Me personally, the way my mind works is I find a problem and I hit it until I find the base solution. And the base solution with Flock isn't so much their mass surveillance. It is a problem, yes. But their base solution, or their base problem, is the DMV and how the DMV gets through loopholes for mass surveillance. And let me explain why, okay? So before I get into this, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I want to get this out to as many people out there. I want you to get in the comments, get involved. Let's talk about this. And I want to get some constitutional attorneys out there, share this video to them so we can all discuss this. And I'd like to see what they think. So here's my thought process on this, my theory, okay? The DMV is the start of the problem. So you go to the DMV with the thought process that you're going to give your personal information to the DMV in the thought that the government, the state government, local government, whatever you want to call it, is going to hold your personal information and not release it to the public and not release it out at all, basically. They're going to hold your personal information because it's personal information, correct? And with that knowledge, the DMV is going to give you a driver's license. Now, here's the kicker on this one. They're going to give you a piece of paper to fill out. And on that piece of paper, it states that they are going to release your information to the police department. And that little piece of paper right now is violating your right. And I'm going to get into this, and I'm going to break all this down for you. So stay with me, okay? I want to let you know where my mind goes, and you guys let me know if I'm right, wrong, or whatever. We'll pick all this apart, okay? Just bear with me. So you're going to fill out this piece of paper. Now, if you want to go to a doctor's office, you want to go to the store, your work, or anything else, you're going to pretty much need a vehicle. And then, mind you, it's privilege, right, whatever you want to call it, to drive. But in order for you to get a license, you have to fill out this paper. You have to provide your personal information. These things you have to do. But you have to fill out this piece of paper to do this. And then you have to, according to the DMV, give up a piece of your right so the police department can do a search on your personal information whenever they want. And I'll explain this. So now you give the DMV your personal information. You fill out this piece of paper. It says the police officers can search your vehicle or search your license or search your license plate whenever they want. Meaning, you're driving down the road. You're the only vehicle on the road. You're doing everything fine. License is good. You're driving fine. You're not speeding. Your vehicle's fine. Everything's good. You're in your lane. Everything's fine. Police officer has no real reason to pull you over. But you're the only vehicle on the road. Police officer's been bored for a little while. He wants something to do. And you drove past him, and he wants to run your plate. So he opens his computer, and he takes those letters and numbers that are on your plate, and he says, well, I want to search this person's letters and numbers, and I'm going to open up this computer to the DMV, and I'm going to find out their personal information. Okay? Now, what he's technically doing is starting an investigation on you, for one, and a warrantless search. He doesn't need a warrant for this. It's public information. according to everybody. But it's not public information. The license plate is the public information, but the information behind that license plate is not public. It's private. Your information, your name, your address, all that stuff is private. I can't take your license plate, go to the DMV, and request your information. That stuff is private. That's the reason why it's there. That's the reason why you get the letters and numbers on a plate versus your name and address back there. That's private information. So, the police officer, he says, well, I'm going to do a search on your license plate just to see if the registration's good. Well, you have a sticker on your license plate that says your registration number, says the date it expires, so on and so forth. So that's not a really good argument for him, but we'll go with it. So he wants to do a registration check. He also wants to see if the license plate's stolen. Well, okay. Well, now the police officer's doing an investigation saying, I think that license plate may be stolen, or I think that registration may be expired. So the police officer's saying you're guilty until you're proven innocent. Well, that's not the police officer's decision. You're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So you're not in a court of law. You're on a highway driving. Mind you, you have no clue that this is happening. You're just driving. The officer's doing this in his car. He's making all the decisions. You're just driving. Now, this is where Flock gets involved. Flock does this on the side of the road. You just drove past a camera. The police officer's back in his air-conditioned office. He'd seen your car pass the Flock camera 6 or 7 times. Heck, you may be the officer's girlfriend, according to some of the things that have been on the internet. You may be the officer's ex-girlfriend. You may be the officer's ex-wife. You may be some random person the officer's seen drive up the road 6 times. You may be something like a running mate against the officer in a political campaign. Something of that nature. These are all things that have happened. These aren't hypotheticals. These are actual things that have happened. And then the officer runs your personal information because of that plate and says, okay, now I have your personal information thanks to the DMV and thanks to the loophole that the DMV created because of a piece of paper that broke your Fourth Amendment right. And all this happened because you needed to get a license that they strong-armed you to get. You didn't have a choice in the matter. You couldn't take that piece of paper and say, no, I don't feel like giving you guys my personal information to get a driver's license and filling out this piece of paper. I want my driver's license to do things legally and drive up and down the roads that technically my tax dollars pay for, and I don't have a choice in that matter. I mean, I have to pay taxes, and you guys won't let me not pay them. There's that point. But, you know, if I want to get a driver's license, do things legally, you guys are forcing me to fill this paper out. And if I don't fill this paper out, you guys strong arm me and say, well, then you're going to break the law. And if you break the law, you suffer the consequences. So I can either A, fill out this piece of paper to get my driver's license, or B, don't get my driver's license and suffer the consequences. So if I fill out the piece of paper, you're taking away my Fourth Amendment right. So now I don't have to, now the police officer doesn't need a warrant or anything else to go through my personal information. He just has to run through the DMV database. And there's a small argument that says, well, it's 2 government agencies that talk to each other. Well, me being from the military background, that's a funny argument to me, because in the military is just one big government agency. And if I want information from one private to another, or if I want information from one soldier to another, however you want to put that, I have to fill out pieces of paper. I have to request that information. I have to document why I need that information, and so on and so forth. And it's not some simple task. It's not saying, oh, well, I just need information on that soldier's private information. It's not just like that. If I want a security clearance, that was a task on its own. A government agency has to come to me, ask me for my personal information, and then the government has to ask me to release my personal information to that government agency to allow another government agency to release that personal information back to that government agency. So there's more security in the government to allow personal information than the civilian market. So that was another point that was raised that I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. So then we'll go back to the flock system. Now, in order to sue the DMV or anything else, I have to prove that they have done something directly wrong to me. Now, one of my backgrounds is I'm a truck driver. I drove over many states with many different trailers, many different license plates. And for me, it's impossible. It would be impossible for me to find out every single license plate, every single truck, every single trailer that I used over all the jurisdictions and FOIA request every single one of them to find out if they've ever run my information. So that loophole exists for people like me that I could never find out if they ran my information. Now, if you have one vehicle and you drive in your little area, I'm pretty sure that you could do this. But if you travel for work, it's going to be very difficult. And most of us travel for work. So it's going to get difficult depending on your travel base, and harder and harder and harder depending on how far you travel and how many jurisdictions you travel over. And it all depends on how many vehicles you travel. You may have a personal vehicle. You may have a work vehicle. So on and so forth. And it gets worse. So they're making it harder for you to do anything about it. All because the DMV forced you to fill out a piece of paper, breaking your Fourth Amendment, allowing a police officer to do a warrantless search on your background just because they wanted to. No reason. Now, I'm not saying a police officer can't do a search on your license plate and get your personal information, but only if you did something wrong. You have to do something wrong. In other words, a cause for the search. My license plate's light was out. The rear light in my vehicle was out. I was speeding. I did something wrong. Not just because I was driving, not just because I was dating the officer, not just because I was a political rival of that officer, not just because I drove up and down the street 6 times. You see where the problem lies? It all starts, the bare root start was the DMV. Once we get that loophole closed, all the other cards fall. You close that loophole and you don't allow your personal information out, and you close your Fourth Amendment right, all the other cards fall. No flock given has set forth a new boundary that has not been discussed in courts, lawyers, or anything else. I want to see the discussion out there. I want to see what everyone thinks, and everyone wants to. I want to have everyone discuss this with me. See the loophole in this argument. Let's see what everyone thinks. Discuss it below. Let's have an honest talk about this. Share it with as many people as you can. Get it out there. We are all being violated from the bottom, which is from the DMV, then the police department, then Flock itself. This is all not hypothetical. It's all been proven right now. Not to mention, on top of all this, go do a quick search right now. The DMV also shares your personal information for a profit to data brokers. That was another thing I found out, which is also a horrible thing to do. Your personal information gets released from the DMV to data brokers. And that was a constitutional break that the government found out about. They made a law that said they weren't supposed to do it, which I didn't know they had to make a law to prove to say they didn't do it. But all the way up till October of last year, they were still doing it, and they're still doing it now. They made, I think it was $288 million up to October of last year in North Carolina, South Carolina, California, and a couple other states. Do a quick research on that. Personal information being released by our DMV, people that we trust in holding our personal information. And they just release it because they wanted to make a quick buck. And then you're being forced to give them your personal information. You don't really have a choice in the matter. If you want to go to your doctor, you want to go to your lawyer, you want to go to court because they're writing you tickets because they did illegal searches on you. They made up a reason to do a search on you to find a crime against you. But yet that's what they did. So, at the bottom down there, let's have a conversation. No flock given. Not one step further. Let's actually step back on this one. Not one flock given. No flock given.